Welcome to my new episode of the youngest podcaster Vihu. लास्ट एपिसोड में मैंने यूएस वेनेजुएला कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के ऊपर बात करी थी। आज मैं यूएस एंड ग्रीनलैंड के बारे में बात करने जा रहा हूँ। यूएस और ग्रीनलैंड के बारे में टुडे आई विल टॉक अबाउट यूएस एंड ग्रीनलैंड। ओके, सो ग्रीनलैंड, द वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट आइलैंड, 836,000 square miles with just 57,000 people. And right now it's at the center of one of the most controversial geopolitical confrontations of 2026. But America's obsession with Greenland isn't new. It spans over 150 years, multiple presidents, world wars, and a potential crisis that could reshape the Arctic. This is the complete US Greenland story. So, the first thing we are gonna talk about are the early years, which were 1867 to 1946. 1867. The Civil War just ended. Secretary of State William Seward purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. But he wasn't done. He wanted more Arctic territory. Seward's advisor, Robert J. Walker, recommended acquiring Greenland and Iceland from Denmark, arguing that Greenland's vast mineral wealth and strategic minerals and all the other things would help the US command the commerce of the world. But Denmark wasn't interested. So now we'll talk about what happened from 1867 to 1946. Now this was the early things. Now we'll talk about what happened from 1867 to 1946. Okay? So after all these things happened, in 1910 the US ambassador proposed trading the Philippine island of Mindanao for Greenland with World War One looming. Nothing happened. Though the US did buy the Danish West Indies in 1917 for $25 million to prevent German control. Now we'll talk about what happened in this thing while World War Two was going on. Okay, so then came World War Two. After Germany occupied Denmark in 1940, the US took responsibility for Greenland's defense, building bases and patrol routes crucial for Allied operations. Now we'll talk about we'll talk about what happened in this thing while Truman was the president of the United States. In 1946, President Truman made the first formal offer, $100 million in gold. Declassified memos show the Joint Chiefs believed Greenland was indispensable to US safety and worthless to Denmark. Perfect for launching air Perfect for launching air counter-offensive against the Soviet Union. Denmark said no. But in 1951, the US got the next best thing. Now we'll talk about the Cold War compromise. Now in the Cold War compromise, we'll talk about the 1951 treaty and the Thule Air Base. The 1951 Defense of Greenland Agreement gave America the right to maintain and expand military bases. The crown jewel, Thule, Thule Air Base, now Pituffik Space Base in the northernmost US military installation. Okay, so now we'll talk about modern Pituffik. Today, Pituffik houses 200 personnel and critical early warning radar detecting Russian ICBMs. Since 2020, it is under Space Force. It is under the Space Force command. For decades, this worked. Denmark got NATO security, America got strategic access, and Greenland got, importantly, infrastructure. Now we'll talk about why Greenland matters this much. Okay, so why does Greenland captivate American strategy? Now there are three core reasons behind this, which we'll talk about. So the first reason is location. Greenland straddles the GIUK gap. Its GIUK stands for Greenland, Iceland, UK, connecting the Arctic to Atlantic. It's the ultimate early warning station for threats from Russia. Now we'll talk about the mining operations and the minerals. So the second reason was is resources. Beneath the ice lies rare earth minerals like lithium, 31 billion barrels of oil equivalent, and critical materials for green energy. Resources currently dominated by China. Now we'll talk about climate change. Melting ice is opening Arctic trade routes. The northeast and northwest passages. Shorter shipping lanes between Asia, Europe, and North America. Whoever controls Greenland could control these future highways. Now we'll talk about the new Arctic competition. Now these global superpowers have started the Arctic competition. See, now Russia, there are many Russian and Chinese Arctic operations. Now, America isn't alone. Russia controls 50% of Arctic coastline with 40 icebreakers and growing military presence. China calls itself a near Arctic state and it has 4 icebreakers versus America's one. And Xi Jinping's want China to become a polar power. Now we'll understand the joint exercises with the China has done with US or Russia. Okay, in 2024, China sent 3 icebreakers into Arctic waters simultaneously. Russia and China conduct joint military exercises there. This is Trump's context. A greater a great power competition for Arctic dominance and Greenland sits in the middle. Now we'll talk about what happened when Trump was the president in 2029 and the 2025 to 26 crisis. Now we'll talk about the 2019 things. In 2019, Trump called buying Greenland a large real estate deal. Greenland said not for sale. Denmark's PM called it absurd. Trump cancelled his state visit. The proposal died until 2024. Now, after his 2024 election, Trump revived it, this time refusing to rule out military force. In his 2025 Congress address, one way or the other, no, in his 2025 Congress address, he said, one way or the other, we are going to get it. Now, this what happened in December 2025 is that Trump appointed a special envoy to Greenland. Now we'll talk about the January 2026 timeline. So, January 2026 was the main crisis mode. Trump threatened military action repeatedly. The White House called it a national security priority repeatedly. The White House called it so they said this repeatedly, saying utilizing the US military is always an option. So they wanted to do a deal with Green for a Greenland purchase with the Danish kingdom or the Denmark government, but Trump said that if they don't agree to the deal, the that military invasion is always an option. Then Europe responded. Denmark deployed forces to Greenland. France, UK, and others sent troops. Trump threatened tariffs. Greenland's prime minister declared, "We don't want to be Danish." No, sorry. Yeah, Greenland's PM declared, "We don't want to be Danish. We don't want to be American. Okay, we want to be Greenlandic." So what Greenland's PM said that we don't want to be Danish, nor we want to be American. We want to be Greenlandic. His successor said Greenland can't under any circumstances accept a US takeover. Now, NATO meetings. So after all this happens, like Europe was in panic and there were many NATO meetings. European leaders warned military action could trigger NATO's Article 5. France suggested economic retaliation. Trump had bagged NATO in a corner. Then came Davos. So now the other thing we are gonna talk about is the Davos deal. Now Trump was at the Davos summit meeting with Mark Rutte. Okay, so on January 21, 2026, Trump met NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the World Economic Forum. Afterward, Trump announced the framework of a future deal. The threats stopped. No military force, no tariffs. Now, what's in the deal? According to diplomatic sources, there are many things. So, the first thing that diplomatic sources are saying that a new NATO Arctic sentry mission countering Russian and Chinese threat. Second, updated 1951 agreement creating US sovereign base areas. And on Greenland, like Britain has in Cyprus, giving America territorial pockets with greater control. So now we are gonna. The third thing was blocking Russia and China from Greenland's mining rights. So critically, no full ownership transfer. Denmark and Greenland both said sovereignty is a red line. Now Trump declared victory anyway, saying he secured US security needs. Crisis diffused for now. Now we'll talk about what's next. So here is the unfinished part. Greenland is now moving towards independence after gaining home rule in 1979 and expanded self government in 2009. Greenland unveiled its first constitution in 2023, calling for independence. The pro independence party won in March 2025. Under self government law, independence requires a referendum and Danish parliamentary approval. That day may come soon. Now, meanwhile, Arctic competition intensifies, Russia expands bases, China sends more icebreakers, NATO reinforces the north, Canada runs military exercises. The US may have achieved its goals, expanded bases, blocked hostile powers without buying an inch. Okay, so now, the US Greenland relationship has evolved from 19th century imperialism to 21st century security partnerships. From Seward to Truman to Trump, the goal stayed consistent: strategic Arctic control. What changed? Greenland has a voice. Its 57,000 people are moving towards independence, negotiating their own future. The 2026 Davos deal may represent a new model: strategic partnership with sovereignty intact. America gets defense needs, Europe maintains principles, Greenland preserves independence. Now, or maybe this is just another chapter in a much longer story, playing out as climate change remakes the Arctic, as great powers compete for resources, and as Greenlanders decide their destiny. One thing is certain: the world will be watching, because whoever shapes Greenland's future may shape the balance of power for the 21st century. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more geopolitical analysis and more for and also comment your opinions if the chat box is available. Thank you. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. So this was my US Greenland analysis. This was my research. Thank you.